Alright guys, welcome to the video. This is Chris from Northwoods Lures here at the airbrushing studio. That resin glide bait, that's going to be a shad, but today that is not the subject. Today the subject is how I do my freehand craws. And I have a good friend and fellow lure painter, Jonathan Wampler, that requested some info on how this works, because I'm sending him some stencils that I cut, but without explanation it doesn't make a lot of sense, because it's not like a traditional crawfish stencil, right? Your traditional crawfish stencil looks something like, give me one second, something like this, for example. And you know, this is a cookie cutter stencil. You put it on the lure, you paint it, and you get a cool pattern every time. What I'm talking about when I talk about Craw stencils are these things that I cut so that I can do freehand stenciling. And I've got plenty of them here, and they look kind of like this, right? So they're kind of round shaped or pointed shaped stencils. And personally, I put little slits, little cuts, take little nicks of paper out, as you can see on the edge, and that gives it a more natural look. But I do all different shapes and sizes, and basically the way it's going to work is we're going to use these stencils to lay on the scale patterns. Now, I'm hoping my new cell phone holder that I've got strapped to my chest will do justice for this video, and if the video quality is poor, you'll have to forgive me. So the first thing we start with, I'm going to turn the light on this. The first thing we start with is the back of the lure. And I learned this, by the way, all credit goes to Jennifer Cravasi. She is the one whose videos taught me this. And I don't see enough people using this method, and it's unfortunate. But we start with the back of the lure. We're going to make the horizontal shell lines on the back of the lure that the side shell patterns are going to connect to. And because we're doing the back first, then we don't have to worry about the sides not meeting up. So to do the back, I make these stencils that are kind of a half moon round cut, and that's for the main shells. I also do the V cut, and I'll usually do that because if you look at a crawfish, at its main shell, at its head, sometimes it'll have more of a V shape. So I'll usually do the V shape, and then I'll come through with these and space them. And the thing about this is there's so much room for creativity. So I'm also going to be trying some of my newer cut stencils today and seeing what I can do with them. So I think something like this might be pretty good. I like that. I think I'm going to use something like this. So this is a little simpler. Kind of comes to a point, but it's rounded. But you'll be able to see how I use this. Took me a while to kind of, I can't say that I've perfected this method, but it took me a while to kind of figure out this method, and it was kind of a frustrating learning curve to try and make this look cool. But you can see here in this pile, this is just a small pile of stencils that I've made, and literally I draw these out on paper, I cut them out with an X-Acto or with scissors, and then I use a really sharp X-Acto blade to do the fine cuts. Now you don't need to do those fine cuts, there's no need, but I like it. Gives a cool look. And some lures I do the fine cuts, some lures I don't. You can see here's a stencil I've used 100 times, you know, to do the back. So some of the stencils I even cut out of like a thinner, like a plastic material. And if you're using plastic, one little tip I learned, this was like a really glossy plastic. I actually sanded it with the fine grit sandpaper, and that prevents the paint from transferring, the excess paint from transferring onto your work. So anyways, I'm going to start with, honestly, with just these stencils, and then there's another stencil that I use, which is the simplest, and you can really use anything for this. A lot of times on the bottom of the lure, we're going to do lines on the bottom of the lure to imitate those belly shell patterns, those shells on the belly. And I don't always do that on craws, but lately I've been doing that, and I do like that. So I'm going to stand up for a second. So as an example, here is a lure that I painted quite some time ago when I first started learning this method. And you can see it's got these shell patterns. So really, you know, you're just going to airbrush these on, and you'll see what I mean when we start. But I need to grab one more stencil here. I need to find something to do the shell patterns on the bottom. So give me one second. this should suffice. So just a straight piece of paper with, if you want, little nicks cut into it. And don't worry about this larger slot here. That was actually so that I could get past an eyelet to get the spacing evenly. But these are the stencils we're going to start with. Now move your stencils to the side so you don't blow them around with air. And you'll have to excuse the sound of my spray booth, which I'm about to turn on. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that you will be able to hear me over my spray booth fan. So, once again, thanks for bearing with me here. You're also going to see me come off shot and down here, because what I do is I keep a bucket and I keep my spray bottles and I keep a toothbrush, and I kind of am a clean as you go type person, so I'm always cleaning the tip of my airbrush and cleaning out my airbrush in this bucket down here. So hopefully you don't get woozy seeing me going back and forth. I'm going to try and limit that, because for right now we're working with just one color, which is black. So the black that I prefer is not your typical Createx brand. It's Golden, a great artist brand, and this is Golden High Flow Acrylics. And basically they also make a version that comes in a bottle like this, which is just their regular fluid acrylics. This you thin down a little bit more. This you don't really have to thin down because it's airbrush ready, but I do like to thin it a tiny bit, just depending. Carbon black is the best black out there in my opinion, and I've tried a lot of different paints. So I'm going to fill my airbrush. I am using the classic, the gold standard. It's an Iwata Eclipse HPCS. And I take the tip protector off, and I take the body housing off, and I put them in a drawer to the side of me, because I don't need those when I spray, at least with this particular brush. To my left, I also have a Badger Patriot 105. Then I also have a Badger Extreme Patriot and a few other Iwatas. I've got a Creos, which is really nice, but this is my workhorse do-it-all brush. Okay, so let's get started, and hopefully I can get this on film. We don't need too much paint in the cup. When I first started painting, that was my mistake. One of my big mistakes, one of many, is that I put too much paint in the cup. So just a few drops. We're spraying right now at about 20 psi. You can spray lower than that or higher than that, but when you're spraying stencils, you don't want to blast your paint too much. So this is a Megabass dog style walking lure, and the lighting in this video sucks, but it's a kind of clear red to clear golden orange fade, and this is going to be like a ghost craw pattern. So give me a second. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to start with the V right here. It's the first thing I always start with. See which one I want to use. I think that looks pretty good. Now, the key is you're spraying on your stencil more than you're spraying on your bait. Anyone with a little experience probably knows that. You don't want to spray on the bait directly, you want to spray on the stencil. And I'm going just back from the eyes a little bit, and I'm using the V. Okay. There's the first one. Now I'm going to switch to the round ones. And you don't have to do it the same way. This is just my technique. Say right about here. And now you don't have to have an exact number of shells. Keep that in mind. Just try and keep the spacing relatively even, or at least keep it where it makes sense for the lure that you're painting. Okay, and see, you'll start to get tip dry on your airbrush. That's just a little bit, but I always have my toothbrush, always. And I just spray air, not paint, and I just rub the tip. That's what she said. All right, so now, we've got 3 so far. Let's do another one. This will probably be the last one. Maybe not, we'll see. Let's do this one here. And I'm letting the overspray come down on the sides just a little bit. Yeah, I think that's the last one I'm going to do. All right. Now, while I'm at it, I'll show you what I personally do for the face. Obviously, we're going to black out the eyes. Just get that out of the way while I'm thinking of it. See what I mean? How I'm always cleaning off the tip of my airbrush? Clean as you go is my philosophy. So now, you can see how the overspray came down the sides a bit. See that? Those are going to be our guidelines for the side panels. But first, what I'm going to do is I like to do kind of around the face, around the eye with this first. Remember the V that we made? There's the V right there. I'm going to do something to come down and around, so let me find something. This is where the rounded out parts of stencils like this kind of come in handy. I think this one's going to be perfect. Alright, so what I mean by that is, you line it up here, and if I do something like this, it's going to kind of look cool and it's going to come around the face. So I'm just going to use this one for this. Fade it right into the eye. So, see that? I'll have to figure out my lighting situation for my next video, but I just wanted to get this video out so that I can send it to my buddy who I'm sending these stencils to. So, that's the main reason. So now, we did this on this side. So now on the other side, make sure your stencil's dry. Flip the whole thing. Use the other side of the stencil. Line it up. Remember, we're spraying on the stencil more than we're spraying on the lure. There we go. So now I got the face taken care of. So now let's figure out how I want to do these scales. So we can go backwards like this. And do you see? This is where it gets interesting. If you see the overspray line, right there, you want to line up with the overspray line, and you want to connect to it. And now you could have your scales pointing back this way, which I'm probably going to do. You could have them coming forward like this if you want. You could use one of the round stencils, which is usually what I do. You see that, how that round stencil comes around? But what I'm going to do is more of this jerkbait style stencil that I made. And you can see how simple a stencil like this is. And this is going to be one of your more valuable stencils. So now what I'm going to do is kind of point it back and one tip so that you don't get a big shadow here because of the gap. There's a gap between the stencil and the lure. There's a big gap right there. You can curl your stencil. That's what I like about the paper. You can curl the stencil down so that it stays in contact with your lure. That's a tip that I wish someone would have told me a long time ago. Boom. There's the first one. This is how these stencils are used. Now you see how it connects to the top? This is the trick. This is where the magic happens. So now, let's do the next one. So now, we're always going to the line of the next one. We're not worrying about this now, we're worrying about this. And we're just going to make sure that when we spray, we stop at that first scale, the previous scale we just did, so that we don't get overspray. Sometimes, you'll get a little bit of overspray over this line right here. You'll come up into this area. Always have a Q-tip ready so that you can pull the paint off with the overspray. So now, every time I do a scale, I lift it up a tiny bit. I don't want the second scale lower than the first. It doesn't look right. So we're lining it up. Okay, next one. And you see how I have paper towel down? Keep your stencil dry. And just go with the flow. Don't overthink it, but also don't underthink it. Don't just put them wherever, because they're just not going to look like scales. And here's the last one. Okay, even a little higher up. Beautiful. It comes naturally with time. You know, you don't have to sit there and spray so close to the edge and get this perfect crisp little line. The line is going to be crisp, and you can let it have a little bit of shadow. So now we're going to do the other side. Now, I left my stencil sitting upright so I know which way I was just spraying, but this stencil, it's clever to put a name, to write something or mark it on one side so you remember what side you were working on. So I was doing this. So now if we flip it, I'll know that this is pointed back a little bit. And now I'm going to curl my stencil the other direction. Now this isn't always necessary, but with a round bait, it helps. With a flat bait, I'll tell you what, flat baits are the easiest to do these freehand Craw stencils on. So now, we're pointed back a little bit. We're curling. Just like this. Take your time. Try not to move too much when you're holding the stencil. If you're having a day where you're feeling shaky, then do a different lure. Don't do this lure. Excuse me, do a different pattern. Alright, so our main scale, or should I say shell pattern of our craw is done. Now the ghost craw wasn't probably the best to show you on, but let's see if I can get the lighting to be good to show you this. There's the scales, or the shells, and look at how perfectly they connect to the top and how they are even on both sides. Now, this is where, if you want to, you can use this stencil, heat set your lure so that you can grab it with your hands, and then you're just going to run this stencil along the bottom to get the lines, which I might do on camera once I heat set this, so give me just a second, bear with me. The mighty hairdryer, you know we got the lure build sticker on there, of course. One tip, always keep the hairdryer moving, never let it sit. So what I like to do on mine also is my craws have a kind of a signature look where I do a color shift. Usually if it's a red craw, I do like a blue color shift. And so you might want to take that opportunity where if you know you're going to put a color shift on the face, to darken, nice and gradual, nice dusting. Darken the area that you know you're going to put your color shift on. That's if you're going to do what I do with the color shift. If you want to steal this technique and pattern, guess what? I don't care. I'm not one of those gatekeepers in the community. There's a lot of weird people in the community that are like, oh, you stole my pattern, you copied my pattern. Guess what? The pattern that you think you made that's original, it's still inspired by something, whether it's conscious or subconscious, and all art is derivative. So, whining about that, I don't want to hear that. Shut up about it, because I'm not in it for the money, and even though I do this for income, and even if I didn't have a day job, which I do, you know, even if I didn't have a good day job that I loved and this was my main career, I still wouldn't care if people copied my pattern, because certain patterns I do, I'll share the techniques, but if you have the same, if you can mix the exact same colors I mixed, use all the exact same stencils that I cut or purchased, did it in the same way, with the same depth and whatnot, then more power to you. This is a simple pattern, and if you cut a stencil and it looks similar to mine, I don't care. If you do this, I don't care. Because guess what? This isn't my idea. This was Jen Cravasi's idea, and as far as I'm concerned, she was probably the original person to kind of at least bring to light this style of freehand cross stenciling. So, no more blabbering. Let's get some belly lines on there, okay? Probably start this area. So this is the way I do it. I do it not in the helping hands. I actually grab the lure, hold onto the lure the whole time. So you make sure that the paper is even, that it's not crooked or warped, and you make sure that when you're spraying the belly, you come up to the side to meet the sides, and that you don't overspray over your craw line. So okay, there's the first one. See, it comes right up to the line, just like so. Let's do another one. So here's why I put this slit in this piece of paper, so that I can slide it over the eyelet so that my lines can be properly spaced. You see that? The other thing is you could use a skinnier piece of paper, but then you risk the chance of getting overspray on the other side of the paper. All right, let's do this one. This lure will be available on my website once it's finished, www.northwoodslures.com. If you comment on this YouTube video, I will leave you a discount code, and this lure can be yours. Now you're getting to see how the sausage is made. And I think I'm going to finish this whole lure on camera for you guys. Anyways, if I haven't already mentioned, big shout out to Jonathan Wampler, the guy that I'm basically making this video for. He's an amazing artist, an amazing lure painter, and his channel is Bad Boy Custom Lures. He has some great YouTube videos that are filmed a lot better than this crappy video I'm filming right now. I love his shads. He's inspired me a lot, so I figured he wants to learn about how I do my craws, and he can be inspired and make craws that kind of look like mine. And I'm making shads that kind of look like his, but we all put our own twist on them, and it's not stealing, it's paying homage to each other in the industry. Another big shout out would be to Jennifer Cravasi of Jekyll Baits. She was my original inspiration. I've never met her, I wish I could, but she's a custom painter for bull shad now. But she was the OG for making YouTube videos. She's good at filming videos, good at videography, and she's an even better artist. And she's a multimedia artist. She doesn't just paint lures. She puts her art through painting, drawing, pretty much any art form, and she's also a musician like myself, so that's great. See these lines? How cool they're looking? I'm liking it. So you'll notice that I'm cleaning out the tip of my brush, cleaning it out, and you see those few drops of paints, they're still lasting, especially with this carbon black from Golden, their high flow acrylics. A little goes a long way. And I didn't thin this. This is some of the best spraying paint that you will get your hands on, and people sleep on it because it's not marketed towards lure painters and airbrushers, but man, this stuff is way better than any Createx black or Wicked black, or Iwata Media black. Get your hands on this stuff, any major craft store chain or online, and it really gets the job done. All right, let's get the last couple lines on here. Okay, there you have it. Got your belly lines. Wonder if this looks better without the light. Let's see. Pretty cool that it's a ghost. But now we're going to make it more fun. We're going to put it back in the helping hands. Keep in mind you should always wear a respirator. I am not wearing one right now because I'm speaking with you fine fish heads, as Jen would say. But here's where some nice quality stencils come into play that I didn't cut myself, because I can't cut stencils like this. We're going to use this small modeled stencil, and I'm going to start. You know what, I do like to put them on the belly sometimes, but this time I might not. Let's see, we're going to start, and we're going to put them on the scales. Or, I always say scales, I mean shell. See that? Okay. That's one side. You can take this and make it your own. I really wish I would have chose a different lure to do this on. Not the lure itself, but the base colors, because this ghost pattern doesn't really show the black lines as well as, for example, a white craw or something like that would have been better for this video. But this is just my first attempt at using this chest mounted camera rig that I got, so just kind of go at it. You know, I've really learned the zen of painting is letting go and being more free, especially with stencils. Let go, don't be too tense, be more free with it. So I also like to put dots along the top. Bring this up more so you can see it. Just like so. Okay. Let's see if I spin around. Yeah, I gotta figure out my lighting situation here. This lighting is terrible. I really apologize about that. Sorry about that, Jonathan. Hopefully you can get the gist of how to use the stencils I'm sending you. Let's see. Do I want to put spots on the bottom? Yeah, maybe a couple. Let me heat set this. Oh, sorry, guys. Oh, this is such an amateur video. Flip it upside down. Alright, so now let's have some fun with this. Alright, now you have to bear with me cleaning out my brush, but I guess I'll show you how I do that. These Iwata Media 360 nozzle spray bottles are intense. A few sprays first. Rag. Wipe out the cup. I've also got some cleaner in this one. You can use that. Back flush. Don't back flush too much. You're going to get water and paint into the chambers, the back chambers of the brush where you don't want it. I also keep a little bottle of rubbing alcohol if I've got some stubborn stuck paint. But careful with that, because rubbing alcohol can wear out seals and stuff. At least supposedly you can. So, you like my splatter here? It's like splatter art. I could sell this desk to art collectors and say it's modern art. Alright. Let's make some magic happen here. See if I can find cobalt blue. I don't know if I'm all out of that or not. That would suck. I think I am too. Shoot. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go buy some of that. Oh well, I'm out of an important color, so I'll use the lighter version of it, which is called Celestial Azure. Yep, this is a secret paint that a lot of people don't want to talk about, or a lot of people don't know about. I'll go ahead and show it to you. Go get yourself some if you want. Other thing that I do is I mix my own color shifts using chameleon powder. It's mica powder, and you can make your own. Otherwise, you can get, you know, Turbo Dork or whatever the heck it's called, or Lure Build. James at Lure Build has his own paints that he mixes, and those are actually incredible. They're a little pricey, but they're amazing. All right, let's make some magic happen here. I'm putting this color shift on the tail and on the face and the head. This is where I really wish I was wearing my respirator. I do not like breathing this stuff in. Millions of little metallic flakes. Delicious. Look at that. Pretty cool. The red and blue combo just really does it. Doesn't necessarily look like a supernatural organic craw, but I'll tell you one thing. My red craw with my signature red craw with the blue metallics and the little white dots that I'm about to do for contrast, these things catch fish like nobody's business. My tackle box is filled with a lot of my own personal repaints. You know, one of my favorite square bills to use is a classic Lucky Craft, and I repaint those Lucky Crafts, and in the springtime especially, I throw a 2.5 or a 1.5 Lucky Craft in my signature red craw pattern, and my goodness, do I catch bass on that thing. It's just bright enough to catch their attention, but still got some shimmer and some natural appearance. You know, fish will bite a lot of different things. A lot of lure painting is catching the purchaser of the lure or the user of the lure. But hey, if you're enjoying what your lure looks like, you like how it looks, it's fun to use, you're proud of it, and it catches fish, well then you're doing something right. The only white that I use, Wicked Detail. Most of the Wicked Detail colors are transparent. The white is not. When I use this as my base coat, but when I use this, oops, I put too much on there. When I use this to spray, I thin it down with some reducer. For example, this reducer is great. Of course, you can use 4012. This stuff is actually great. I actually really like using this. I just hate how it's packaged. I hate these. I hate that. But anyways, check this out. Here's my signature. The end of this paintbrush. Here's my signature little dots that I do. I usually do them in groups of 3. That's kind of my thing. That is kind of my thing. It's kind of whimsical, kind of cartoonish. That's my style. I do match the hatch lures. I do natural lures. You know, that's important, is being able to do a really organic lure. I do that. In fact, I've learned to move more towards that style. But my fun style is this whimsical, catchy, bright style. And it catches fish. So, whatever. But yeah, match the hatch. I've been doing a lot of organic looking shads, which is important to be able to do. And I paint a lot of those for myself. Sometimes people want something more colorful and unique, and my style that I've kind of developed over the last 4 years is fun, and they work. I only paint blanks that are good, that aren't going to leak, or excuse me, they're not going to have cracks in them where water gets in. I make sure they swim true. So if you like what you're seeing, head to the website, comment for a discount code. But anyways, I mean, there's pretty much the finished product of a Red Craw ghost style. The lighting's terrible. It really doesn't do any justice to this lure. But that really wasn't the purpose. The purpose wasn't to showcase a lure. The purpose was to show how I use my freehand Craw stencils. So that's the important part. Hopefully that helps. This is how I use a freehand Craw stencil to get those shell patterns. Everything matches up on top. Jonathan, I will be packing up your stencils into an envelope, and you do not owe me even a penny for them. I'm sending them to you for free, and enjoy them. Use this video as a reference guide. Message me as usual, and the rest of you guys, thanks for watching my first official lure painting video. They're not all gonna suck this bad. You're gonna actually be able to hear me better, and you'll actually be able to see what I'm doing, because looking down at this right now, it feels like I'm trying to look through a viewfinder here, and it feels like the lighting is not good. But anyways, cheers guys. Tight lines. northwoodslures.com. If you have custom requests, it's northwoodslures@gmail.com. If you have questions, comment. If you want to learn anything else about lure painting, just leave a comment. And follow, like, subscribe, and I'll start putting more videos up. This was kind of just a test run and a video for a friend. But yeah, if you watched it, thank you. Tight lines.